Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Well, welcome once again. Our tradition at this time is to go around the room and introduce ourselves. Then I'll introduce the speaker. And since there's several people here for the first time, I would appreciate it if you simply mention that you're here, so that way we can give you the proper welcome. So let me start. My name is Oswaldo.
Ethan.
I'm David.
My name is Cass.
I'm Jack.
I'm Brad.
I'm Chisholm.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Clint.
Larry.
My name is Jeffrey, and I am here for the first time. And I have a therapist who suggested I come to give me some tools for relaxation and various things.
Hi, I'm Al.
My name is Roy.
I'm Scott. I'm Nicholas. This is my first time.
My name is Gary.
Hi, I'm Josh.
My name is David.
I'm Grisha. Peter. I'm Al.
My name is Michael.
My name is Harley.
I'm Jerry.
My name is Yana and I'm here the first time.
My name is Celine. I'm here for the first time.
So welcome everybody, and that's Michael. So it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. John Frias Morales. He conducted an empirical case study of GBF under the guidance of Golden Gate University Professor Lee Robbins, one of our Sangha members. So in that study, Dr. Morales analyzed hundreds of GBF historical documents dating back to 1994 to 2012 and elicited 24 oral histories to answer a particular question, and that is, how does the relationship between gay fellowship and Dharma inquiry impact a non-duality consciousness? In his talk, Dr. Morales will reflect on the transformation and the values he observed and documented. He has served as a deacon in the Presbyterian Church and participated in several gay men's spiritual retreats. He lives with his partner in Sacramento, works as a data scientist in healthcare, and teaches management courses as an adjunct professor. So welcome, John.
Thank you. So I conducted an empirical study of GBF, and this was probably about 5 years ago. And I analyzed hundreds of GBF historical documents from 1994 all the way up until about 2012. And I listed 24 oral histories to answer the question, do increases in gay fellowship participation and increases in Dharma inquiry correlate with increases in equanimity? And during this talk, I'm going to quote GBF members and use it as evidence to show correlations between fellowship and Dharma inquiry with equanimity. And as a quick definition, equanimity is defined as mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper that is undisturbed by experienced pain or difficult situations. Now, the Buddha in 483 BC inspired a model of awareness to quiet the mind, to discover one's natural inner light and emptiness, to open the heart through practice of loving kindness, and to have openness to universal energy. In GBF, I found, adopted this philosophy. So what was going on historically that caused GBF to be created? After the AIDS crisis, grieving and mourning survivors felt a need to ennoble gay men with brotherly love and intellectual dharma, meditative sittings. Founding members felt a need for solidarity and connections that didn't involve sex. GBF was called into existence in 1981 in reaction to homophobia, bigotry, bullying, and violence towards gay people. The nature of gayness is not a mistake of personal development or errant birth, according to Mark Thompson and Mark Marion. Baroche Golden and David Lewis found that most gay men did not grow up cultivating loving kindness for themselves. Clint Sider said that our gayness alienates us from families, neighborhoods, churches, and synagogues, scouts, schools, and social organizations. History is an important part of this study because social and cultural homophobia increased. As it increased, GBF reacted with increases in fellowship activities and dharma inquiries. And this is a historical timeline on this document here. You can see that GBF first started off with home sittings and discussions. Then it evolved into a monastic teacher organization. And it finally, the current phase we're in right now is Sangha teacher, where members of our own community participate and contribute and lead the Sangha. And what's important here historically is that my hypothesis is that as things happened in society and in culture, which you see on the top part around the U.S., GBF reacted positively with Sangha-type events. And so you can see, for example, in 1998, after Matthew Shepard was killed and murdered, that year GBF reacted by going online and developing web pages, as well as the book Queer Dharma was written. And I'll quote from that book in just a moment. So a specific type of qualitative research design was used for this study. It's called portraiture. Portraiture is a method of art and science that captures human experience and organizational life where the researcher actively participates in the experience in order to develop a deeper understanding. The unit of analysis was the Sangha, not Dharma or the Buddha. The method for this study consisted of on-site and face-to-face inquiries, focus groups, and one-to-one interviews were the primary data collection that was used. And my notes were confirmed and validated by analyzing historical documents, namely 21 retreat designs, 336 audio recordings, 4,001 Yahoo listserv messages, the 2 Queer Dharma books, 5 discussion sessions, 6 light interviews, and 9 oral histories, and 6 Dharma talks. The fellowship effect. I hypothesized that the fellowship effect was a response to societal and cultural circumstances. The fellowship effect I researched aimed to identify increases in fellowship that are correlated with equanimity. The best description of Sangha's function comes from Clint Sider, and he wrote in this book, Queer Dharma, volume number 2, "We need Sangha to nurture us, affirm our humanity, be a mirror unto us, and guide us for deeper truths and wisdom. It's a worthy goal to find Sangha that feels right for us in our quest for wholeness, connection, and recognition of the Buddha's nature that is in all of us." And in this article, Clint, he basically outlines this model where the Sangha is really going back and forth between the universal and individual inquiry. And in the middle, you see the Sangha and some principles, what the function of the Sangha is, and the values that should be represented and discussed. So I adopted this. I thought that was a pretty good model, and I kept that in my study. The evidence I found of increasing fellowship comes from a tally of GBF Sunday forums. You can notice in the data on the back side that there's a diversity of teachers that led to a diversity of questioning. GBF draws on the spiritual talents within the community and is self-reliant. You see in Table 5 on the classification of GBF Sunday forums, there were 168 during the period I studied, and 168 Dharma and Buddhist Dharma talks. There were 84 open discussions and 84 wildcard discussions. Evidence from the fellowship leading to equanimity can be found in the social volunteering and introspective events that were hosted by GBF. In the category of social, I found that GBF hosted potlucks, picnics, nature hikes, and theater parties. In the category of volunteering, I found that GBF participated in the Hamilton Larkin feeding of others, participated in microloans, in the Zen Hospice Project, in the Buddhist AIDS Project, HIV positive support group, medicine Buddhist group, and terminally ill outreach. The qualitative interviews were interesting. During the meditative silence part of the Sunday morning sessions, the gay men looked dignified in meditative equanimity, almost like deities, according to Jim Stewart. Jim clarified that sitting among 50 men meditating in deity position generated an ennobling and healing grace that honors the gay male existence. Stewart says that they all look the same in meditative pose. He knows who they are by their commitment to meditative practice. The meditative pose acknowledges the dignity and commitment of participants rather than being misguided by the limitations and judgments from our humanity, past, and ego. Alan Oliver found that GBF creates fellowship events to, quote, clarify, commit to, and integrate on a deeper level what our lives are about. Be lambs unto ourselves, unquote. Jim Wilson found that GBF participants have the opportunity in our gay practice groups to incorporate and integrate the great insights from everywhere, including new insights of our own. Roger Corliss found that GBF community is constantly changing. It is not a pre-existing organization which one joins. It creates and maintains itself independently with the needs who consider themselves members. The inquiry effect. I hypothesize that the inquiry effect is a personal response to inner suffering and happiness. Evidence of increasing inquiry can be found in the tally of GBF newsletter topics. The question for this part of the study is, does an increase in inquiry also lead to equanimity? And inquiry is an evolutionary process where differences are worked out. For example, lectures on the delusion of me and the separate self. The first awakening for gay men is experienced when they experience gay loving of another man for the first time or when they come out of the closet. You see on table number 7, classification of GBF newsletters by topic, that the most written about newsletter was on Dharma scholarship, followed by gay topics, and then followed by Sangha dialogue, and there were 8 newsletters that were action-oriented or political. Other increases in Dharma inquiry can be found in the number of people participating on online discussions at the GBS listserv. In 2012, there were 1,076 members on the listserv. They created over 4,001 messages in a 10-year period. On graph number 4, you see the listserv messages classified by year. And you see that in 2004, there was a spike. That was a year that a lot of states passed anti-gay marriage laws. And so there's a lot of conversation and discussion about that. Roger Corliss documented in a qualitative case study how GBF views Buddhist philosophy and how GBF organizes itself. I have a quote. I want to quote Roger Corliss's previous study, and he said, quote, "It was notable how many members of GBF advanced high metaphysical explanations for the importance of GBF. David Holmes, who is regarded as a teacher by many members, strongly argued for the existence of a gay spirit, an ancient and universal calling to living shamastically between the worlds, and saw GBF as one of the places where gays could come together to realize who they are and what their cosmic purpose is." Elzak Amani led a lecture in the Dyad inquiry on the union of opposites, such as male-female, inner-outer, introversion and extroversion, individuality and universality. Amiani explained how wholeness requires ownership and acceptance of our light and darkness, rather than blinding our visions, such as the use of projecting, compensating, privileging, and regressing. Amiani said that self-investigation and digesting previous experience creates the capacity to hold light and our darkness. Young gay men, according to Ray Dyer, have to question themselves growing up. They ask, Why am I different? Why don't I feel the way they feel? Why am I interested in things they aren't interested in? Roger Corliss found that GBF is not only vocal but opinionated. The oneness or wholeness effect. My last hypothesis investigated if equanimity is an outcome of fellowship and inquiry. The primary evidence of equanimity comes from an increase in website traffic. Just think, over 30 years ago during the AIDS crisis, few wanted to be associated with the gay community. Now people from all over the world are seeking out GBF. And you see this on table number 6, the website traffic in 2011. There were close to 1.3 million hits on the GBF website. 439.88 were from China. And you can see Russia also, 69,000 came from Russia, where they're very homophobic. Self-awareness is most present in gay men when they come out. Inner questions arise of what their desires really are. It's a kind of spiritual inquiry. Sangha creates shared effort, and within intimate personal sharing, you can find that each person is the whole world. According to Jim Stewart, most men resist acknowledging their tenderness and empathy, preferring to project it onto another person who will carry it for them. Nature has a way of creating soft old men as awakened to masculine and feminine energy, according to Jim. I want to read another quote. This is from Tom Moon in the first edition of Queer Dharma. When the heart is open, the quality of life changes dramatically. Loneliness and separation are the consequences of a constricted heart. And when that condition ends, so does loneliness and separation. Intimacy is the atmosphere of an open heart. When we tell others what we have suffered, and when they can witness it with sympathetic understanding, our emotional wounds begin to heal. Community is essential if we want to have open hearts. Mark Marion said, Sangha unites the two most important components of lasting meaning and genuine hope. One is the sharing of experience, gifts, and challenges that come from being gay. The other is practicing together and supporting each other in awakening and discovering our true nature. Now, in conclusion, on Gay Buddhist Fellowship, I found that the Gay Buddhist Fellowship is a universal self-discovery process where participants reclaim a fulfilling life of possibilities, generate inner peace, and contribute to the scholarship of enlightenment. It's a journey towards the true self and the hope for experiencing oneness and wholeness beyond separation and division. The motto of GBF is that all may live in equanimity. The study concludes that as fellowship events increase, moderated by increases in Dharma inquiry events, more equanimity increased and was visible in the world. I found evidence that GBF was a cause of equanimity. And based on, aside from the research, I'd like to just summarize what I've heard from GBF members, some tips on gay resilience. When you hit, these tips are from the interviews. When you hit rock bottom, acknowledge and accept the dark situation. Be with the pain and know that it is not the real you. Calm down with meditation, silence the ego and stop reacting. Ennoble yourself with universal, enduring truths. Respond in your own unique way that is not based on your inherited experience. Intend loving kindness, intend change, intend love. And just my own experiences from doing the study, I grew up, just to let you know some background, I grew up feeling like a reject and feeling isolated. And my collages that I did at the time when I did the study in 2012 are on feelings of being ugly, too dark, ashamed of my DUI and my bathhouse mistakes. I felt unlovable, and I used people for sex. I learned from studying Buddhism here at GBF that these are the deluded self, not the real me. My biggest fear in life is to be alone in the world and die alone. And after attending GBF, I felt in my heart and mind that a rainbow family like GBF and self-discovery inquiry could fill this void. My favorite quote is from Baruch Golden and David Lewis, and they said during the Dharma talk on metta that judgments and negative impressions we have on others need to be first released and acknowledged first. So, for example, they said, quote, "You're fucked up, but I send you kindness." But once you acknowledge and release this, then you could actually, once you become aware of your own internal reactions, you can actually have some true metta and say, "I send you loving kindness. I send you loving kindness. I send you loving kindness." But first, you remember to say, to acknowledge the truth is, "You're fucked up, I send you loving kindness." During the GBF social hour, Mark, a fit and handsome 40-year-old something gay man with baby blue eyes and salt and pepper goatee, he shared with me how his integration of synagogue and GBF teachings saved his life. And we departed with a strong bear hug, and I was left with a smile ear to ear. And I can honestly say now that having been at GBF for the time period that I was here, that GBF also had a role in saving my life. And so what I'd like to do in the question and answer period is if there are any people here who have additional histories and narratives, we'd like to capture it on the recordings, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, John. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions and comments. Let's open the floor for discussion.
We talked briefly outside. I'm a little confused, but is this final, or are you still working on, this is like a work in progress, where you're going to be?
Well, I submitted, this was in a project for Lee Robbins' class, Qualitative Research Methods. So there was a formal paper that I wrote. It was close to 100 pages. Wow. And I got an A for the paper. And then so, and yeah. And so Lee Robbins asked me to come back and to present the findings to the group. And, a lot's changed in my life. I graduated, and I'm working now. But if you'd like, I will capture any gaps that there are, and I can make edits to it, and then you can post it online so that it's available for everyone else to see.
Well, I was thinking, because you mentioned it very briefly about the meals we do for homeless shelter once a month. It used to be the Hamilton Family Center, but they shut down, so now we're doing the Washington Street Youth Center. Mm-hmm. You live in Sacramento, right?
Yeah.
Well, we do it once a month. If you ever want to have a hands-on experience of our community in action, you're welcome to come down the next day we do.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Be on the crew.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we can change information afterwards.
Okay, yeah, I can speak with Lee Robbins about capturing any additional gaps. If you guys feel that you want to be included, I can make a revision of the paper.
Okay. Well, just you pour all this work into this. It just might be interesting for you to have a first-hand experience of dharma in action.
Sure. Thank you.
John, something that you didn't mention in here, I don't recall hearing it, but it's also an interesting and important component of what we do here at GBF is the outreach to prisoners. Because we send out the newsletter to a whole bunch of people. I don't know what the total number is, but it's a big number.
It goes to people in prisons?
People in prisons. It has to be, of course, you have to be careful about how the envelope looks so that the person is not compromised getting the information. But I have two good friends that live in New York, and they have only once where they hear to the GBF, but they participated actively in this. They basically adopted a prisoner that they've been in touch with, and they've found that a very good experience, very good reciprocal experience, and they have gotten in touch with the family of the prisoner, and it's a wonderful relationship that developed out of this outreach effort that we do over here, and that's one of the several things that the GBF Sangha does.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
I'm looking at the timeline, and it seemed, for me personally, there's an important date that's not listed. And that's 1996, when the protease inhibitors came out. And during the course of that year, AIDS and people who were living with AIDS took a change. I had been in an HIV support group prior to that. And starting in 1996, as people started the Lazarus effect, waking up and realizing they weren't going to die, the HIV support group contracted. There were smaller and smaller people there. They didn't need to go. It took a while for people to realize what was going on. And from my own case, I first of all didn't trust my own results for several months. This can't be true. And the HIV support group was like down to 2 people. And I heard about this group. And that's what got me in 1997 to join this group. I'm wondering if other people, if maybe a significant number of other people, had that same sort of journey here. So I think 1996 is an important date.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll make that revision. That's good to know.
How do you define non-dual consciousness?
Well, I defined it as equanimity. And equanimity is just defined as mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper that is undisturbed by experience, pain, and difficult situations. That's how I defined it.
Could you say a little bit more about how you came to focus on your definition of equanimity?
Yeah, I just took it from the internet. I think that's what I recall doing.
Oh,
that's where I got it from.
Oh, from
I just did a search.
From like Buddhist-ish sources?
Yeah, yeah, that's where.
Versions?
Yeah, I think it was Wikipedia or something like that I got it from, and it's in the quote that you guys do at the very end where you hold hands, and equanimity was for all is one of the intentions, and so then I just looked it up. Do you have an alternative definition that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I guess what I was thinking was that, like, you could look at it from sort of 2 perspectives. So, like, one from sort of a Buddhist perspective, equanimity is sort of one of the 4 components of like the 4 measurables, and so there might be other aspects like joy and loving kindness and compassion that are said to be like a little bit different. So I was so from that perspective, like one could think about compassion, self-compassion, which would be like a little bit different from within the Buddhist perspective. And then I guess also within, so just to spell it out. So one could look at, not there's anything wrong with looking at equanimity, but it just crossed my mind, well maybe one could look at this as, well, what was the effect in developing self-compassion, or in developing compassion, or in developing joy, for example. And then from within the Buddhist perspective, equanimity has a somewhat, at times, problematic particularity to it. So it's tied up, it's in a lot of teachings with this sort of notion of karma that is, can be seen as victim blaming. So in a lot of Buddhist countries, people can be sort of led to believe that whatever suffering they have is because of their own past actions. That's like the notion of equanimity, that people are the heirs of their own karma. So it's a strict, of all the teachings related to the 4 measurables, equanimity has always felt for me like the hardest to subscribe to. And then from without the Buddhist perspective, it seems like there's, this sort of sets up more with some psychological constructs like a whole bunch, like, so for example, like non-neurotic, like non-reactivity or non-worrying and stuff. So anyway, that was his work.
You would probably be really interested in reading Roger Corliss' study of GBF. He dived really deep into the Dharma and these philosophical topics that you're mentioning. And I wanted to complement his work and focus on the Sangha instead. So, but
yeah, like on the community aspect.
Yeah, his paper is pretty good. He's a Buddhaologist, and he's an expert. Yeah. He's his name is Roger Corliss. I don't think he's alive anymore.
No,
he's not. But he got his doctorate from Harvard and was a philosopher. He was a member here. Yeah, it's on. It's one of the newsletters. It's his entire study is published in one of the newsletters.
He was also just an incredibly sweet guy.
Yeah, he was. It's a more intellectual conversation in that newsletter, and that you'd probably enjoy it. It would answer your questions.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I actually meant my question just kind of interested, like how people approach it. So, like your personal experience, how you came to like the construct, why it interested you, and stuff. So, but I'm also interested in that. Yes, that's very helpful.
Yeah, from what I remember, I was beginning. It was my first year of being a doctoral student. I was having a hard time. I was having migraines all the time, and so I just wanted to dive deep into GBF and participate and share in the experience. And I had healing on my own to do as well, and so I was more focused on that when I was doing the study and actually immersing myself in trying to get the healing that I needed, so I can continue with my studies.
I think that's really interesting, and being someone that just sort of came into GBF at a later time, I used to be involved in the GBS, which is the Gay Buddhist Sangha, which isn't really that active right now. But then also, when the sisters were here the other week, I was reminded that there was a whole bunch of history around the sisters involved in Buddhism. So I was wondering, I think this is quite illuminating, but there is also other gay historical resources you might want to tap into that are outside of GBF. And if you ever wanted to broaden your study, there's a whole recordings and everything available with GBS. I do know that they used to record every Sunday. A lot of history that is there in those records, in those archives around that Sangha.
It should be preserved because that was one of the things that I had difficulty with, but Lee Robbins and a couple other people, I think Jim Stewart had boxes and boxes of old documents, and so I was able to go through those. So maybe one of the other students in this class will do another study.
Okay.
I hope, but you should preserve them. Yeah, you should preserve it.
I didn't know if that you were just limiting this to, because that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a whole other part of Buddhism in the gay world and the gay community that's in addition to this. So I thought I'd bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just curious if you came across a number of other gay Buddhist organizations. It feels to me like this organization is pretty unique, especially when I travel. I find little groups that meet maybe once a month or something to meditate together. I don't know of very many other gay Buddhist sanghas.
Yeah, I found quite a few. I remember at the time when I did a search, I found around maybe 15 other organizations around the country that were very similar. Mm-hmm. Very similar. The Sangha, the gay Sangha, was one of them, and there are a lot. Most of them are LGBTQ and not just focused on gay men. And then let's see. I participated in the Gay Men Spiritual Retreat as well. Have any of you participated in that? That was very helpful. That was an extension of this.
There were also, I think it still exists, lesbian sanghas too.
Yeah.
And that might be interesting to get groups from.
Yeah, and the people I interviewed belong to other organizations as well, other Buddhist organizations, and I didn't follow up on any of those threads at all.
I'm wondering whether you tracked the age of the people that you were interviewing in terms of the generational spread, because we are generally we're an older group.
Yeah.
And I think that has implications in terms of the historical, if as older men we may have grown up with less mirroring, less validation in the culture, etc. So I've had this discussion with David Lewis, a concern that in terms of being multi-generational and inviting younger people to participate, that younger LGBT folk may have less of a need to affiliate just with gay men. In other words, that may be a generational thing in and of itself. I'm just wondering whether that...
Yeah, I didn't interview anyone who was younger, and that's a bias that I had toward in the design of the study. I interviewed everyone who was part of the core initial group of founding, who have been here for some time. And so that's a bias that's in my point of view. And I acknowledge that for sure. And for example, I didn't interview anyone who has issues with GBF. And so there's a lot. There were quite a few people at that time when I was here who had different points of view and philosophy, and I didn't interview them at all and didn't acknowledge those threads as well. The people who had philosophical or social conflicts with GBF, I didn't document any of that.
Do you know who the monastic teacher was in the 90s?
There were about 3 or 4 of them that cycled through here.
I didn't know that. I always thought it was, brought in a different speaker every week, but I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, there were fights. People had philosophical disagreements with who they were, and they stopped coming while that person was here. And then, from what I understand, the teacher just stopped showing up one day, and then someone said, "Well, I'll fill in," and then they just continued doing that. Just well, what the hell do we need a teacher for? We can just, we have all these bright spirits here. Why don't we just do it ourselves?
The success of GBF.
Yeah.
For the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, and we had all this talent. They acknowledged their talent, and they said, you know what? You've been studying philosophy, and you've been doing all this reading. Why don't you do next week? And that's how it took off, from what I heard.
And I think that's a success. I have one more question for you. What did you find different between your Presbyterian? I know you went to 7th Avenue Presbyterian Church. Very liberal or very in GBF. Did you find any differences or similarities, or especially one where there's dogma and everything is kind of like right there, and Buddhism is real, but coming to something like that.
Yeah, I felt the difference between religion and philosophy was that religion had rules, and so, for example, I could never say, you're fucked up, but I wish you kindness. So at my church, you could never say that. But here at GBF, if it's going to lead to your inquiry and to more rigorous conversation and diving deep into something else, then it's completely appropriate. And so, also talking about...
It's a little patronizing. You're fucked up, but I'll pray for you or something.
Yeah, you're fucked up, but I wish you kindness.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody said it to me, I wouldn't take it kindly. I already knew that.
Well, I'm going to add, you should just add, you're fucked up, but for a reason you're perfect right now for what you need to do, and I send you kindness. There's reasons that you're perfect.
Yeah.
For what you need to become.
And that's what I think the speaker was trying to say, is that, let's just get it out first. And now, with a clean heart, you can wish loving kindness on someone. Now
With
that
the
you,
acceptance.
yeah, with the acceptance, acceptance of
Because
who-
you're fucked up is
the-
not very acceptable.
John, just going back to the way that we are organized over here, if you can call it organized, but I think one of my personal experience with the Sangha, I forget how many years I've been coming here, but this is a group that functions organically without being hierarchical. We all do our part and it works. You show up over here and there's 30, 40, 50 people that show up. There's a lot of individuals here who have a lot of connections with the large Buddhist community of the Bay Area. And if you go through the recordings, there's some really amazing Dharma talks. And also personally, as far as equanimity, the weeks that I do not come here, I notice that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what's wrong with this week? Often it's because I didn't come over here. Coming here on a Sunday tends to give me equanimity. It grounds me for that time. So, I think this, in my personal experience, I've never been engaged with a community that functions so well. And I think partly it's because of that transition we must have made in the past. I came here after all the hassles that some people you were describing. But, we don't have a guru. We do not follow dogma. We have a variety of opinions. And we come here voluntarily and everybody does their part. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we have over here. And of course, on the other thing too, over time, the number of Dharma talks in our website has increased. And I'd be curious to see how many hits we're getting now and from what countries, because these are really difficult times worldwide, and I think we perform a really great service at large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't investigate the governance, and I was aware of it because a lot of members come from 12-step, where there's no one controlling the organization, and the only thing I documented was that it's unlike most religions where there is no membership, there's no in GBF, there's no baptism, like organized religion, and so there's I did acknowledge that, but I didn't really get into the hierarchical governance structure. That was brought to my attention, but I just didn't have time to research that.
Oh, thank you so much, John, for holding up this mirror to us so we can see how we've been and how we've become. Something I wanted to say in response to the idea of coming here and gaining equanimity is just the fact of the support one gains from being in this group. There's something about the intentionality of our all coming together to do this practice. And particularly, I do my practice at home every day, and there's a qualitative difference when I'm sitting here with 30 or 40 other people who are just practicing alongside with me. I feel that support in an intangible way, and it does lead to equanimity in your outlook for a while afterwards. There's a vibration that continues through your day. So I just wanted to acknowledge the support that the Sangha gives to each member. It's important.
Thanks.
There was a speaker here one time and said, who in the audience considers themselves Buddhist? And I was surprised that it was a minority of people here consider themselves Buddhist. So I wanted to hear what your take on that is. Why people in the Gay Buddhist Fellowship don't consider, the majority doesn't consider themselves Buddhist.
As a religion, Buddhist as a religion or a philosophy?
I guess that's the underlying.
Everyone who I spoke with said it was a philosophy and not a religion. And so people came from different religious traditions and were happy to attend, their church, LGBTQ church, as well as attending here. And there are several people I interviewed who would alternate going back and forth. And I definitely did that. And The people I spoke with didn't see any conflict whatsoever.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was really fascinated by all these hits from other countries, especially China. I mean, that just blows my mind that you got all these hits. I didn't even know they knew we existed. I'm a pre-computer tech idiot, so I don't know how you compiled this data. Can you kind of explain to me how you got those hits?
Yeah, I forgot the name of the guy who did the web pages. Tom. He contacted Yahoo, the administrator. He had a contact number, and they ran a report for him. And I have a list of all the reports. It's really detailed with graphics and stuff. And so it took him about a week to get it, but he just sent me all the data.
Well, it's really, really fascinating. I had no idea other countries were even tuning in on this. So it's very fascinating to hear that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, someone could easily follow up with him to get more recent data. It'd be interesting to see.
Definitely, though, we need to point that Russia probably has a bigger population than France, for example. So the hits are actually not relative. Like China has the biggest population on Earth, so we need to see the percentage, or compare it with or two active people online. I mean, in order to, unless you don't compare with each country, you just.
The point I was making was not, I wasn't really interested in what the traffic was. What was interesting to me was that in this timeline, there had been the evolution in GBF from being individualistic to moving towards your universal. And so what I see in the data is that GBF expanded beyond its own boundaries and is servicing and helping out people all over the world and breaking down those barriers within GBF. And being of service to other people. So, that to me, that was an indicator of equanimity.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else actually mentioned something. So you could just, if you compare this data with the numbers today, then they would have also a meaning. Like if they were like in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
When did you take these hits? 2012.
2012.
So somebody was said that he was interested to find out what's going on today. So if you have this new list of data, next to it, then you will see the real expansion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This is 2012. That's a long time.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. What's like this year or 2000.
Yeah. Is Tom still involved?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sure he could run it easily. Yeah.
I would think that Yahoo would only be able to track the listserv and not the web.
Yeah, I don't know how he did it, but he had a way of doing it.
Joe Kukulka was the webmaster.
Oh, okay.
At the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Regardless, though, it would be really interesting, given all the recent political developments in places like Turkey and Russia, whether in fact we provide a service to people that would be under tremendous duress at the moment, or people in those two countries, among many others, but it will really be a very helpful thing for us to realize. And of course, the countries have a way of, governments have a way of blocking web pages, so I wonder if we are being blocked, if that's something that we can find out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And as I mentioned again, GBF, when it first started, it was in a contractive mode, spiritually. But then now what I saw is that there had been more expansive, giving, loving role to the world, rather than after the AIDS crisis, when there was actually a need to contract.
So first I wanted to apologize, having arranged this initially, but I spent 2 hours driving the 3 miles from home to here. So that's why so just to, I should have walked on time. Just to follow up on the issue of governance, which I've been particularly interested in, and so it's been puzzling to me that we have managed to survive, including some conflicts, which some other people may remember in the past, with essentially no hierarchy, no structure, no money to pay people for doing jobs. And so I've been thinking about that, and originally when John and I talked about this, I thought it would be good to investigate that, but I'm glad you did what you did, which was wonderful. And so the thought that I have about it is that they may actually connect, because it may connect with the spiritual perspectives of Buddhism. Though, as we know, it doesn't always work every place, of non-attachment, of loving kindness, and so forth. So when we've had conflicts and disagreements, we've had them, but we've managed to come through them in a peaceful way and maintain ourselves. So just a thought.
I guess I would add in terms of governance that I think there is a structure, and I think it is non-hierarchical, but that those of us who are now on what we call the board of directors, which sounds a little more hierarchical than steering committee, but GBF also went through losing its nonprofit status because of some disorganization, and that caused some of us to come together and really look at how do we need to be more structured and organized. So I feel like we're kind of a well-oiled machine at the moment, but also, at any moment, everything could change because we're an older group and we're all subject to illness and dying and all that.
Well, that's probably true, but for many years, the steering committee and the board, which I was on for a while, consisted of whoever showed up at the meeting once or twice a year that we said we'd had a steering committee meeting, and then we sort of sat around wondering what to do.
Right. Yeah, and what I'm suggesting is that's no longer the case.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Had I not done the study, I probably wouldn't have finished my doctorate degree. And so I'm really grateful to the organization to opening up and allowing me to do the research. It was very helpful, not only academically, but spiritually. Helped me develop myself and continue to grow. So I just want to acknowledge and thank you for that opportunity. And I love all of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, how about announcements? Does anybody have any announcements we should be hearing?
Yeah, I'll just mention if anybody wants to get out of the city because of traffic, there's a Himalayan fair in North Berkeley. It's a lovely afternoon in a beautiful park with people from Tibet and the Himalayas and India, Nepal. It's a real Buddhist energy. Food, music, dance, sunshine, and no traffic.
Where's that again?
It's
Live Oak Park, north end of Shattuck in Berkeley.
Oh,
right above the university, a few blocks. Lovely place.
It is a very nice.
Right, you can walk from the BART station.
Lee?
And for those who aren't going to that but want to go to lunch, I've invited John and a couple of students here to Mateo's Taqueria for lunch afterwards, which is right around the corner on Mission Street. So other people may want to come to lunch.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I'm the host today. A few things out there, help yourself to eat. And we've got hot water for tea. And just put your cup in the dishwasher that's right beside the sink. And I think the sign-up sheet is on the credenza if you're interested in getting information. And some of us meet at 12:30 to head out, like Lee was saying. So please join. And I'll be walking around with a Donoval.
Yeah, which reminds me, of course, that to remind everybody that one of the main reasons, or if not the main reason we keep on going over here, is that we pass around a Donoval. suggested donation is $10, so more if you feel very generous that day. That pays for the rent for this wonderful space. It pays for the Larkin Street lunches. It pays for the outreach for the prisoners, the publication of our newsletter. So it keeps us going. So when Mark passes down a ball around, please remember to contribute if you can. And of course, one of the things I should be telling you about now is who's going to be the next speaker. Except that I forgot to.
Open discussion.
It will be open discussion. And by the way, regarding open discussions, those every few weeks we have no official Dharma speaker, and we break into small groups, and it's really a good opportunity. Well, usually the facilitator for that suggests a topic, but there's no need to stick to that topic. And in the small groups, we get to know one another much better because of the closer, smaller group discussion. Yeah, Harley.
Yeah, also very important, next Sunday is Carnival. So there's going to be a parade down here, and parking is like impossible, or driving. So just take part.
Even walking here is can be difficult because they close up. What's it now? Valencia and
Samba.
You have to either join the Samba group, or I'm kind of so try to be here early. Then.
Don't let it ruin your equanimity.
Yeah, Clay.
Just real quick, we mentioned that we do a dinner once a month at the Rock Street Youth Center, which is a homeless shelter for young people. And it's just an opportunity to create a meal that's a lot fancier and more comfort level than what they normally used to on a limited budget. It's the third Saturday every month. If you're interested in participating, it means in helping. We go to the center and actually make the meal at the center after I bring in the groceries. Just contact me afterwards, and I'll put you on the volunteer list.
And let's not forget to say hello to the people that are here for the first time, so they can feel welcome. So we'll have the half-hour social after this. And at this point, unless there's any more announcements, we hold hands and do our dedication to memory.
By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness, which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.